You don't have to carry this alone. Not anymore. She nodded. Thank you, sir. Step back. Bring them home. And bring yourselves home. The group boarded the shuttle. Engines hummed. The hangar doors opened. The shuttle launched into the dark space. Beyond, into the unknown, the stars stretched, around them like silver dust. The shuttle flew quietly through the dark. No one spoke for a long time. Finally, Trell whispered Lyra, "Are you scared?" Lyra looked out the window. Yes, but bravery isn't about having no fear. It's about moving forward even when fear is there, Raxer nodded. Then we moved forward together. The shuttle crossed into the sector where the transport ship vanished. Suddenly, alarms sounded, detecting debris. Vexlin shouted. Pieces of metal floated in space, burned, silent. Jurna scanned the fragments. This is the missing transport. It was destroyed. Lyra's eyes narrowed. Scan for life signs. Anything. Trell checked the sensors. No survivors, but there's something else. Everyone looked at him. Structure. No, a ship. Hiding behind the asteroid belt. Small, dark, and no registered ID. Lyra felt her blood turn cold. Show me. The screen displayed a dark, shadow-like vessel. No lights, no markings. No visible life. But Lyra knew that shape. She had seen it before. It's them, she whispered. Oblivion forces. Silence filled the shuttle. Raxer's voice was low. What do we do? Lyra took a deep breath. We follow orders. We don't engage. We gather proof and return to the Academy. The Coalition needs this information. Trell recorded images and scans. The shuttle turned slowly, but then the shadow ship moved. Its dark hull shifted. It's as if they were eyes glowed faintly. Jurna gasped. It sees us. Lyra stood tall, calm, steady. Hold course. Don't panic. The shadow ship watched them, then slowly drifted back into the darkness. The shuttle sped away. A new beginning. Hours later. The shuttle landed back at the Academy. Commandant Rollix rushed forward. Report. Terrell handed him the data. It's confirmed. The Oblivion threat has returned. The Commandant's face tightened. Then everything changes. He looked at the team. U5 will form the Academy's first advanced response unit. You will train together, fight together, and prepare for what comes next. Lyra exhaled slowly. Her past had returned. Her secret was gone. Her peace was broken, but she was not alone. For the first time, she had a team, a real team. Terrell stepped beside her. Lyra, are you ready for this? She looked at the sky. I've been ready my whole life, but now. I'm not fighting alone. The Academy lights glowed behind them. New chapter had begun, and the galaxy was about to learn once again. Humans may be quiet, but they are never weak. Tolan arrived 30 minutes later, huffing and mumbling to himself. He looked like he hadn't slept all night. When he saw Alia calmly working, his jaw dropped. You're just fixing the drone? He asked. Alia nodded. It still needs repairs. Tolan rubbed his face. Alia, the entire colony is talking about you. Alia tightened a bolt. I know, you know? Tolan threw his hands in the air. Do you understand what you did? The Cavrix commander wants revenge. They don't forget things like this. They don't forgive them either. Alia paused, lowering her wrench. I didn't want to fight. But you did, Tolan whispered. And you beat them. Alia went quiet. Her eyes drifted to the ground. I didn't have a choice. Tolan sighed heavily. He didn't understand her. But he cared about her and he was afraid. Just don't do anything else dangerous, he said, rubbing the back of his neck. Promise me? Alia looked away. I'll try. But some promises were impossible to keep. Rumors spread throughout the day. Curious colonists peeked into the workshop. They didn't enter. They just stared at Alia from the doorway. Some whispered her name. Others stared at her hands, as if expecting to see glowing power or implanted weapons. Alia kept working. She didn't like attention. It made her feel exposed, vulnerable. People watching her always stirred memories she didn't want, memories of the old. Training facility, strict voices, and unbearable expectations. She tried to ignore it, but by noon, she heard a familiar sound outside, the soft crunch of gravel under heavy boots. Alia stiffened. She recognized that sound better than anyone. Military boots? The door opened and a tall man stepped inside. He wore a long coat with the symbol of the Terran Frontier Guard on the shoulder. His hair was cut short, and his eyes were sharp and observant. Commander Yalan Voss. Alia froze. Tolan bowed his head nervously. See Commander Voss, sir? What brings the Terran Guard here? Voss didn't look at Tolan. His gaze was fixed on Alia. I'm here for her, he said. Alia's fingers tightened around her wrench. A visitor from her past, Commander Voss, stepped closer. His boots echoing on the metal floor, he examined Alia quietly, as if studying a rare creature. It's been a long time, Alia Wren, he said softly. Alia swallowed. You shouldn't be here. Tolan looked between them in confusion. You two know each other? Alia didn't answer. Voss did. Alia Wren was part of a Terran defense program known as Project Helion, he said. A secret initiative to develop elite human fighters. Tolan's jaw dropped. What? Alia stared at the floor. She hated this. She hated hearing those words spoken out loud, Voss continued. She was one of the youngest trainees. And one of the best. Alia's hands trembled. She put her wrench down before she dropped it. I left, she said quietly. I didn't want to be part of it anymore. You didn't have permission to leave, Voss replied. Alia finally looked up, her eyes sharp. I don't need permission to live my own life. Tolan took a step back. He had never seen Alia speak with such intensity. Voss exhaled slowly. Look, Alia, I'm not here to arrest you. The program is gone. The facility was shut down. You're free now, Alia blinked. Free. Officially, yes, Voss said. But that doesn't change what you are. Or what you can do. Alia turned away. I'm just a mechanic. Voss shook his head. A mechanic doesn't take down a Kavrik squad alone. Silence filled the workshop. Alia closed her eyes. She wished he would leave. She wished the past would stay buried. But Voss didn't leave. I'm here to warn you, he said quietly. The Kavrik Syndicate won't let this go. They'll come back, stronger. Alia's voice was barely audible. I know. And when they do, Voss continued, the colony will depend on you. Alia turned sharply. No, I'm not a soldier. I don't want to be one. Voss met her gaze. Want or not, you're the only one who can protect them. She took a step back, pain flashing in her eyes. That's not fair, Voss agreed. It isn't. He turned toward the door. I'll be staying in the colony for a few days. Think about what I said. Then he left. Alia stood still, breathing shakily for the first time since the raid. Tolan approached her slowly. Alia, you were part of a secret project. She nodded once. Why didn't you tell me? Alia looked at him with tired eyes. Because I didn't want to be that person anymore. She walked to the back of the workshop, where a small storage room sat. Tolan followed quietly. Alia opened a metal locker she rarely touched. Inside was a small box. She pulled it out, hands trembling. Tolan watched silently as she opened it. Inside lay a pair of lightweight combat gloves, reinforced with metal threads, and a small emblem silver, shaped like a rising flame, the symbol of Project Helion. Alia stared at it for a long time before whispering. I ran away because they wanted to turn me into a weapon. Tolan swallowed. And you don't want that? Alia gently closed the box. I want to fix things, not break them. The Kavriks returned that night. The colony alarms blared. Alia jumped out of bed, heart pounding. She rushed to the window and saw flashes of light in the distance. Kavrik ships were landing again, this time more than before. Tolan burst into her room without knocking. Alia, it's them. They're back. And there are more of them. Alia grabbed her boots. This is my fault. No, Tolan insisted. It's their fault for being monsters. Alia shook her head. If I hadn't fought them, you saved someone, Tolan said firmly. That's never wrong. Alia hesitated. Then she grabbed the small metal box. Tolan's eyes widened. Are you sure? No, Alia whispered. But I have to try. Together they ran toward the colony square. Fires lit the sky. Colonists fled in every direction, trying to hide. Kavrick's soldiers marched through the streets, their armor gleaming in the firelight. Alia's stomach twisted. When she saw the commander returning, the same one she had defeated, red markings on his armor glowed brighter now. He pointed at her. There, the human girl. Seize her. Alia slipped the combat gloves onto her hands. She took a slow breath. Her eyes hardened. She stepped forward, no longer trying to blend into the background. Tolan whispered Alia. Be careful, Alia nodded. I will. The Kavrick soldiers charged. Alia met them halfway. Her movements were quicker this time, sharper. She dodged the first soldier's strike and countered with a swift punch to his jaw. Sparks flew from her glove as metal met chitin. The soldier collapsed. Another swung at her from behind, but Alia spun. Kicking his legs out and sending him crashing into a wall, colonists hiding nearby stared in awe. The girl who barely spoke, the girl who avoided everyone, fought like a storm. But she wasn't fighting to win. She was fighting to protect. The commander stepped forward, blade-like weapons extending from his arms. You will not escape this time, human. Alia raised her hands. The gloves humming softly. I'm not running, she said quietly. The commander attacked. Their battle was fierce, faster, and more brutal than the last. Sparks filled the air. Dust swirled around them. Alia felt her arms ache, her breath shorten, but she didn't stop. Finally, she struck a pressure point under the commander's arm. He fell to the ground. Stunned before she could catch her breath, more Kavrick's dropships appeared on the horizon. Alia's eyes widened. There were too many. Voss ran up beside her. Aiming his rifle, Alia, we need to fall back. Alia shook her head. If we run, they'll destroy the colony. Voss fired at an advancing soldier. You can't fight all of them alone. Alia didn't answer. She knew he was right, but she also knew something else. Something she had tried to ignore for years. She was trained for this. She was built for this. She was the only one. Who could stand between the colony and destruction? Alia Wren. The soft-spoken girl no one expected. And now, the galaxy was remembering her name. The night sky lit up with fire as the second wave of Kavrick's forces landed, and Alia stepped forward. Again, the night on Rathus 9 burned brighter than any day the colony had ever seen. Flames rose from damaged buildings, smoke curled into the sky, and the heavy thud of Kavrick's boots echoed across the ground. The second wave was larger, more prepared, far more brutal. Alia Wren stood in the center of the chaos, breathing hard, her gloves flickering with faint sparks. She had fought off the first attackers, but the arrival of the reinforcements shifted everything. There were too many, now too many for one girl. Even one like her commander Voss stayed close, firing controlled shots with his rifle. He protected her flank while shouting orders to the scattered colonists. Fall back. Get behind the barricades, he yelled, but the colonists were terrified. Many had never held a gun, and those who had were shaking too much to fire straight. Alia looked around. Fear ruled the colony. People were hiding behind broken walls, curled behind metal crates, covering their ears as the Kavricks marched forward. She hated that fear. She had lived too long in places filled with fear, and she had no intention of letting Rathus 9 fall. Suddenly, Kavrick's soldier charged at a group of children hiding near a collapsed water tank. Alia moved before she could think. Her legs pushed her forward. She leaped across rubble and broken metal. She reached the soldier just in time. Her fist slammed into the alien's jaw, cracking the chitin. He staggered back, stunned. Alia moved again, sweeping his legs and knocking him to the ground. She hit a point under his arm that forced a painful shock through his body. The children stared at her with wide eyes. "Go," she whispered. "Hide behind the supply crates." They ran out. Voss joined her side. "Alia, we need a plan. They're surrounding us." Leah scanned the area. The Cavrix troops were closing in from both east and west. Their ships hovered above, casting long shadows. "There's only one place we can hold them off," she said softly. Voss raised an eyebrow. "Where?" Alia pointed toward the large mining ridge at the edge of the colony. The rocks there formed narrow paths and tight corners, a place where numbers didn't matter. "The ridge," she said. "We can control the ground there." Voss nodded. "Move the colonists there." "I'll cover you." Alia didn't hesitate. She ran through the colony, guiding people toward the ridge. Her calm voice carried more weight that night than any loud command. People listened. They moved. They followed. A quiet girl with steel in her eyes was the only thing keeping them alive. The retreat to the ridge, the path up the ridge was steep, but its twists and narrow passages were the colony's best chance. As the colonists climbed, Alia stayed at the rear. Intercepting any Cavrix soldier who got too close, she moved like a shadow, silent, fast, impossible to hit. Voss fought beside her, using precise shots to push the enemy back. "Keep going." He shouted at the colonists. "Don't stop." When the last group reached the top, Alia and Voss followed. The ridge formed a natural defense line. Large boulders blocked the wider areas, and narrow ledges created perfect choke points. It was there that Alia stood. The Cavrix soldiers approached in a wave of clicking armor and buzzing growls. Their commander walked at the front, rage glowing in his dark eyes. "You run, little human," he hissed, "but you cannot hide." Alia didn't run this time. She stepped forward. "No hiding," she said softly. "Not tonight." She raised her hands, her gloves glowing faintly. The Cavrix commander let out a roar, and the real battle began. Alia leads the defense. The first wave of Cavrix rushed up the rocks. Alia met them head-on. She dodged a heavy swing, hit a pressure point on the alien's neck, and swept his legs. Another lunged at her from the side, but she blocked with her glove and countered with a sharp elbow strike. She moved with purpose. Not to kill. Not to destroy, but to protect. Behind her, Voss directed colonists, helping them load rifles and aim at approaching enemies. "Watch the left flank. Keep your fire steady," he shouted. One miner looked terrified. "Commander, I can't do this." Voss grabbed the man's shaking hands. "You're not alone. We fight together." Leia heard him. His voice gave the people courage, but it was Elia's presence that kept them steady. She stood like a wall between the Cavrix and the colony. The Cavrix commander stepped forward again, furious. "This time, human ear tricks will not save you." Elia's breathing grew heavy. Her arms ached. Her legs burned. But she didn't step back. "I'm not using tricks," she said quietly. "I'm using training." Commander roared and charged. He came at her with both blades extended. Alia ducked, barely missing a strike meant to take her head. She rolled, pushing off a rock, and hit the alien hard across his abdomen. He didn't fall. He grabbed her arm, squeezing hard. Alia gasped as pain shot up her shoulder. "You fight well," he said darkly. "For a human child." Alia twisted her body, slipping out of his grip. She kicked his leg, forcing him to shift his weight. Then she hit a joint between his plates. The commander groaned, stumbling. Alia stood her ground. "Leave this colony," she said. "There's nothing for you here," he hissed. "There is you." Alia's heart tightened. That was the truth. Cavrix didn't care about Rathisnine. They cared about the girl who dared make them retreat. Voss fired a shot that scratched the commander's armor. "Alia, fall back. You're hurt." Alia shook her head. "If I fall back, they'll break through." And she refused to let that happen. A dangerous plan. Voss moved beside her again. "We won't survive at this rate. They'll overwhelm us." Alia watched the Cavrix regroup at the base of the ridge. More soldiers poured out of the ships. There were too many. Too many for the colony, too many for her, but not too many to trick Alia. Pointed to the steepest part of the Insi. Ridge, a narrow cliffside covered in loose rocks. If we can lure them there, she said, I can trigger a collapse. It'll block their path. Voss frowned. That's risky. You'll be right in the middle of it. Alia nodded. Yes. Voss stared at her. Alia, you don't have to do everything alone. Her expression softened for a moment. I'm not alone. You're here. He blinked in surprise, but he didn't argue. All right, he said. We do it your way. Ow. The cliffside Tripolia sprinted down the ridge, stopping near the loose cliffside rocks. She picked up a metal pipe lying on the ground and struck it against the stone wall, creating a sharp ringing sound. The Kavrik soldiers turned toward her instantly there. One hissed. The human girl. Alia stepped back, pretending to stumble. The Kavrik squad charged up the narrow path. Alia ran, not away from them, past them. The narrow rocks forced the Kavriks into a tight line, unable to move freely. Voss shouted from above, Alia, get clear. Alia slid across the rocks, grabbed a loose boulder, and struck the support ridge. The ground shook. The cliffside groaned. Then the rocks collapsed. A massive wave of stone and dirt crashed down onto the narrow path. Sweeping the Kavrik soldiers off their feet and pinning them under rubble, the enemy line broke. The colonists cheered from the top of the ridge. Alia dropped to her knees, exhausted. Voss rushed to her side. Alia, are you all right? She nodded slowly. Just tired, but she wasn't safe yet. Because the Kavrik's commander had survived. He climbed over the rubble, eyes burning with hatred. You can crush my soldiers, he growled, but you will not defeat me. Alia forced herself to stand. She was shaking, but she faced him anyway. The commander charged. Alia tried to dodge, but her tired legs couldn't move fast enough. His blade slashed across her shoulder. She stumbled. Voss fired, hitting the commander's side. But the alien kept coming. Alia gasped in pain. The commander raised his blade for the final strike. A burst of energy shot down from the sky, not from Voss, not from the colonists, but from a ship entering the atmosphere. A Terran ship. Alia stared in shock as the ship descended. Its symbol glowed bright, the Vanguard Initiative, a rescue she never expected. Voss exhaled in relief. It looks like the galaxy is finally paying attention. Alia's vision blurred. She fell to her knees. The last thing she heard was Voss shouting her name. The colony was still standing. Because of her, the soft-spoken girl no one expected. Alia woke before sunrise, just as she always did. The dim lights of Rathesnine's underground shelter flickered as they shifted into low-power mode. She sat up slowly, her mind already busy with plans for the day. The Kavrik's attacks had grown more aggressive, and she knew the next strike would be worse than anything before. But Alia did not panic. She tied her dark hair back, grabbed her tool belt, and stepped out into the hallway with her quiet, steady steps. Outside, the colony was waking up too. People were rushing around, checking equipment, reinforcing barricades, preparing for whatever danger lay ahead. They were tense, but their eyes softened. When they saw Alia, the girl who once hid in the corner was now the calm center of the storm. Even if she still barely spoke, she walked toward the command tent where the makeshift leaders waited. As she entered, heads turned. They looked relieved and worried. Morning, Alia, said Captain Darris, an older miner who had taken on the leadership role. We're getting strange readings from the upper ridge. Could be scouts. Alia nodded. I'll check. Those 3 words were enough to quiet the entire room. She didn't waste time. She didn't ask unnecessary questions. She simply did what needed to be done. Darris tried to give her backup, but Alia shook her head gently. Just me. Everyone exchanged looks. Arguing with her never worked. She always got her way, not by force or shouting, but through a quiet confidence that made people trust her. Minutes later, She was climbing the high ridge overlooking the colony. The wind was cold, biting through her jacket, but she didn't slow. She reached the top and crouched low, scanning the valley. She saw them. 3 Cavrix drones hovering low. Scanning the terrain with red beams, Alia studied their movement patterns, analyzed their proximity, and waited for the perfect moment. Then she moved, silent, fast. She launched herself from rock to rock, using the shadows to hide her approach. When the closest drone drifted near a cliff edge, Alia leaped forward with graceful precision. She grabbed its exposed panel, yanked it open, and jammed her tool blade inside. The drone sparked whirled and crashed quietly into the dust. The other 2 detected the disturbance and turned toward the ridge. Lights flashing, Alia didn't hesitate. She grabbed the fallen drone's plasma cell and threw it like a grenade. It exploded midair, hitting the second drone and frying its circuits. The third drone came in fast, its weapon charging. Alia ducked under a burst of red plasma and sprinted straight toward it. She slid beneath the drone, sliced its hovering stabilizer, watched it topple into the rocks. 3 threats eliminated. She dusted off her hands and stared at the sky. If drones were here, scouts were not far behind. And if scouts were coming, the Cavrix commander was preparing something big. She rushed back to the colony. When she returned to the command tent, the leaders jumped to their feet. "Well?" Darius asked. Alia looked at him calmly. "They found us." People murmured anxiously, but she raised her hand gently, and the room went silent. "We attacked first."
That's blinked.
We what?" Alia stepped forward, her voice quiet but firm. "If we wait, they will surround us. Their main force is near. We must strike the scout camp before they call reinforcements." This was bold, dangerous, unexpected. But Alia had never been wrong so far. Darius sighed. "All right. What's your plan?" Alia reached for the map, tracing a line with her finger. "Their camp is here in the canyon. High walls, limited exits. We trap them." Alia pointed to the mining tunnels, with charges and timing. The plan was simple, risky, brilliant. The colonists immediately started preparing explosives made from mining fuel tanks. Others gathered scrap metal for shields. They didn't complain. They trusted her. As everyone worked, a young boy approached Alia with trembling hands. "Are we going to make it?" he asked. Alia crouched down so her eyes met his. "Yes. How do you know?" She smiled softly. "Because humans don't give up." Her words weren't loud, but they hit the boy's heart with the force of a star. By nightfall, everything was ready. Alia led a small team along the narrow path toward the canyon. The sky was dark, filled with distant stars and the soft glow of the nebula that always hung over Rath's -9 as they reached the canyon's edge. Alia signaled for everyone to get into position. She crawled forward to see the Cavrix camp. The aliens were setting up heavy weapons. They were preparing for a full assault. Alia stepped back and gestured to the others. It was time. She pressed the remote detonator. The first blast roared through the canyon, sending fire and dust into the air. The Cavrix shouted in confusion, their structures collapsing around them. Alia and her team charged. She moved like lightning, quick-controlled, deadly. She used the shadows, the rocks, and the chaos to her advantage, striking every target with precision. A Cavrix soldier aimed a plasma rifle at her, but Alia darted sideways and knocked the weapon from his hand. With one smooth motion, she flipped him over her shoulder. Her team fought bravely too, inspired by her courage. Miners swung heavy tools like weapons. Engineers threw handmade grenades. Everyone fought with everything they had. The Cavrix scout commander spotted Alia and roared. He was much larger than the others, covered in heavy armor. He charged Alia, waited at the last second. She stepped aside and slashed the fuel line on his armor. Sparks ignited instantly. The explosion lit up the canyon. The remaining Cavrix panicked and fled into the darkness. The canyon fell silent except for the echoes of the battle. Alia stood still. breathing softly. Dust settled around her like falling snow. They had won, but it wasn't over. The scout camp was destroyed. But this victory meant something much larger. The Cavrix commander would not ignore this failure. He would return, and he would come with full force. Alia stared at the sky again. The darkness felt heavier tonight. But she did not fear it. She was ready. The night on Rathastein was unusually quiet. The stars hung low, shimmering like cold pieces of glass scattered across a dark table. Alia stood at the edge of the colony, staring at the sky as if she could feel something shifting beyond it. Something preparing to fall on them. She wasn't wrong. After the destruction of the Cavrix scout camp, there had been no movement for hours. No drones, no patrols, no signals. It was the kind of silence that made even the bravest hearts tremble. The colonists tried to rest inside the shelters, but anxiety clung to them like dust in the air. Alia didn't rest. She couldn't. Her instincts told her that the Cavrix commander was planning something far bigger than the colony had ever faced. She walked slowly along the outer barricade. The lights flickered softly, casting pale shadows on the ground. She checked the homemade traps, reinforced panels, and plasma rods they had set earlier. Everything was in place. Still, she felt the pressure of something heavy drawing closer. Darius approached, rubbing his arms to keep warm. "You should sleep for a bit, Alia," he said gently. "You've done enough for today." Alia shook her head. "Not yet." Darius sighed. "The people trust you, you know. Even the kids. They think you can do anything." She didn't respond. Compliments never mattered to her. Responsibility did. When Darius walked away, she continued her slow steps, listening to the wind. The ground beneath her vibrated faintly. Alia stopped. That vibration was not the wind. She pressed her hand to the dirt. The faint rumble grew stronger, engines, large ones. Alia stood up immediately and sprinted toward the command tent. She didn't shout, she never did, but her urgent pace was enough to alarm the guards. Inside the tent, the leaders gathered quickly when they saw her expression. "They're coming," she said. Darius swallowed. "How many?" Alia looked him straight in the eyes. "All of them." A chill spread across the room. Within minutes, the colony came alive. People ran to their stations, grabbed weapons, and powered up the defensive grid. Lights flashed, alarms rang, and families huddled in reinforced shelters. A thunderous roar echoed across the valley. Then the Cavrix arrived. Massive carriers descended from the sky, their engines shaking the ground as they unleashed wave after wave of alien soldiers. Their armor glowed with red markings, showing that these were elite units. At the center of the formation stood the Cavrix commander, a towering figure wrapped in dark armor with sharp glowing lines across his mask. The colonists gasped. He looked like a walking fortress. Alia stepped forward, calm as ever. The commander raised his voice, amplified by his suit. "Humans of Rathastein, surrender your fighter, and we will spare your colony." All eyes turned to Alia. She didn't flinch. Darius stepped forward before she could speak. "We won't hand over anyone." The commander tilted his head. "Then you will all fall." He raised his hand. The battle began. Blinding plasma fire rained down on the barricades. The colonists fired back with everything they had, homemade grenades, heavy drills, mining lasers, but the Cavrix forces were relentless. Alia moved like a shadow among them. She ducked, dodged, and struck with deadly precision. Every move she made was clean, efficient, faster than any I could follow. She leaped onto a Cavrix soldier's shoulders, flipped over him, and pulled the power core from his armor. She used his falling body as cover before sprinting toward a heavy cannon. The cannon fired. Narrowly missing her, Alia grabbed a plasma cable from the ground and swung it around the cannon's barrel, jamming the mechanism. The cannon overheated and burst in a shower of sparks. The colonists cheered, but the Cavrix commander only grew angrier. He charged toward Alia, moving surprisingly fast for his size. Alia jumped backward, avoiding his first strike as his massive blade tore into the ground. He swung again, The force of the blow sent shockwaves through the dust. Alia analyzed his movements, watching the rhythm. He was stronger than any alien she had ever fought, but he was also predictable. His armor was thick, but not impenetrable. She circled him, forcing him to turn his heavy frame. When he swung once more, she ducked low and slipped behind him. Slicing through the joint of his armor, a spray of sparks shot out. The commander roared. He tried to grab her, but she rolled away and climbed onto a stack of crates. From there she jumped, landing on his back. She jabbed her tool blade into the glowing lines across his spine. He stumbled, but he didn't fall. The commander spun violently, throwing Alia into the dirt. She hit the ground hard, but she pushed herself up quickly. She had no time to rest. The commander charged her again. This time, she wasn't fast enough. His armored fist slammed into her side, sending her sliding across the dust. The colonist cried out. Alia coughed, pushing herself to her knees. Pain shot through her ribs. She could barely breathe. The commander approached slowly, confident of his victory. "You are strong. For a human," he said, "but not enough." Alia wiped blood from her. Lipped out, then she stood. Not because she felt strong, but because everyone behind her was counting on her. She tightened her grip on her tool. Blade. The commander swung his massive blade. Alia stepped forward, instead of backward, and in that single step, she found the opening she needed. His blade struck the ground. Alia leaped upward. Using the embedded blade as a springboard, she soared above him, twisting her body in mid-dash air with all her strength. She drove her blade straight into the glowing core on his. A deafening crack echoed across the battlefield. The commander staggered. His red markings flickered. Then, his armor split apart in a burst of white-hot energy. The explosion threw dust and debris into the sky when it cleared. The Cavric's commander collapsed to the ground. Defeated, the remaining Cavric soldiers froze. Without their leader, they panicked and retreated toward their ships. Within minutes, every alien was fleeing the battlefield. The colony of Rathus 9 had survived. Cheers erupted everywhere, but Alia wasn't cheering. She stood still, breathing slowly, staring at the fallen commander. Darius ran to her. "Alia, you did it. You saved us." She shook her head softly. "No, we all fought." Before he could reply, a deep hum filled the sky. A massive Terran warship appeared above the colony. Its lights glowing bright blue, a voice echoed through the air. "Attention, Rathus 9 colony. Terran Vanguard forces have arrived." Darius looked at Alia. "They're here for you, aren't they?" Alia didn't speak. The warship lowered a sleek shuttle, and several armored Vanguard officers stepped out. Their leader approached Alia with a respectful bow. "We have been searching for you," he said. "You are the last Helion-trained operative. The Vanguard Initiative needs you." The colonists gathered behind her, silent and proud. Alia closed her eyes for a moment. She was tired, but she wasn't afraid. When she opened her eyes, she nodded. "I'll go." The officer smiled. "Then welcome, Alia Wren. Humanity needs fighters like you." Alia looked back at Rathus 9 one last time, the place that had become her home. The people who had believed in her, she whispered softly, "Stay safe."